So it's really, really I'm really excited to sit here. It's the first time that I'm joining Icon. I don't know, I missed that as a founder. Next time we'll fix it. And I'm so excited to sit here with Sarah. She was like early investor in DAZ, and I really fell in love from the first minute and until now. I just want to share one experience that I had with her. So during COVID, we decided to start DAZ. Actually, I was still with Microsoft. I didn't really know what we were going to build. You know, we just like formed a team, and we had this call that Gil introduced us to Ashim and Sarah. And we had like, 1 hour Zoom call. They asked me a lot of questions, tons of questions, really quickly. Like she's faster than Israeli. and after that, I got, an hour after, I got like an email of like, we're so excited, we'll be honored to build an important company together. I remember that. So yeah, that's my experience with Sarah. So good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having us, Icon. I feel like me and Merav have a very Icon story of like trying to build these bridges from Israel to Silicon Valley, and it's just been a huge privilege to work with you as an entrepreneur and now as an investor too.
Yeah, and so I just wanted to ask you, Sarah, I met you at Greylock, probably one of the, I would say, most prominent firms like in ventures, and like you had a great position there. What drove you to kind of like let go of that and start your own journey with starting Conviction?
So one of the things I love most about working with Israeli entrepreneurs is they have this like very unreasonable attitude toward risk. I think it's very cultural where everybody's just quite risk on, like, well, what could happen? We should of course go for it. And my parents were immigrants from China, but they were also tech entrepreneurs. And so I think it comes back to my own story is I grew up around people where starting companies and taking that sort of risk was very normal. And it was an enormous privilege to be at Greylock. It's a, like 80-year-old wonderful venture firm where I learned a lot from people like Ashim, but I'd started a company before, and sometimes you see an opportunity where like you had this amazing role at Microsoft, you're leading over 2,000 people, and you say like, the world is so different now that I want to go very quickly, and like you can't look away from the opportunity. I had a number of friends who were in research and like kept telling me that deep learning was happening and kept telling me that it was a very general hammer that mattered. And so when the smartest people I know are interested in something, I paid attention and just felt like I had to go after it.
Amazing. And if you go back to, I think it was what, 2022-ish, AI was more of a buzzword. Like we all, like everybody knew about that, deep learning, AI. That was there even from the beginning of computer science. But what did you see that others didn't that actually, drove you to, okay, let's go, let's get money and invest in those companies?
Yeah, I think that saying like we got it just right in 2022 and launching the fund before ChatGPT makes the story sound like a little more perfect than it really is, like with most startup stories. In 2015, 16, 17, I was starting to like think about and write about what was going on in machine learning, but there weren't good machine learning companies that were pure plays at the time, right? It was, you'd use these technologies as features in recommendation and ranking systems, for example. There are fraud prevention companies that use these techniques. For me, one of the things that we recognized at the time was we've been like trying to back these companies, and then you had foundation models that were scaling up. And it just reduced a huge amount of the engineering and research burden for an entrepreneur to start working with these technologies because they could work on the shoulders of others, right? The cost to go deliver a useful product came down a great deal. And that's the thing that we began to bet on.
And like thinking about the name Conviction, that's a big name, that's a big commitment. So how do you think about investments in the firm and what you're looking for in founders and like in your investments?
Yeah, well, I think one thing, and I want to talk to you about, your journey from technologist to business leader, because like the parallel I would have is everybody at Conviction is, they're fundamentally like a technical product person, right? Me, my partner Mike Vernal, Bella, Pranav, we're a very small firm today. I think for this moment in time, when the environment is so uncertain and the capabilities are progressing very quickly, you actually have to have a technical opinion, right? And I don't think this is true at all points in time, but for us, like, it's not that we are telling entrepreneurs what opportunities to go attack. But I do think entrepreneurs, hopefully you had this experience, like they, in an uncertain environment, it's more fun to work with people with a lot of context, right? Who you're not educating as much, who might have informed opinions about the space and a lot of connectivity. And so for us, the conviction was one, we're just going to take like a decade-long bet on this technical wave, and two, we really prefer to be day one investors, as our experience was with you. We're choosing teams and then a direction, and all companies, even there are AI companies growing very quickly now, but I think many great companies, they just take like some pretty solid belief over a long period of time and ups and downs, and so we wanted the name to express that. But I think it's interesting to think about where we are in the AI cycle, because you started this cloud security business, and it wasn't at like the beginning of cloud, right? And I think it's kind of interesting when like we hear from entrepreneurs, it feels a little late, or like some of the sectors are taken. And I'm curious how you thought about that in your situation, because like Salesforce went public in the 2000s. There were cloud companies. AWS was already a monster. What made you believe that there was still opportunity?
Actually, a very interesting question. When you think about cloud security, when we started DAS, again, beginning of 2021, and again, I was like one of the leaders of cloud security at Microsoft, and Microsoft wasn't the first in cloud, if you remember, like it was like second, with Google, maybe third at the point. So we saw like, there was like the movement to the cloud, and by the way, there's a nice cloud here, I know, like I said. But there was a movement to the cloud, and cloud security was actually, it's third generation. Like, there were like, companies that was, trying to solve for container security. Others, they were trying to solve for infrastructure as code. Other, like, if you remember, like, there were like, bits and pieces of stuff. The problem was there, and then it accelerated because of COVID, and then like the movement to the cloud was like massive. And then when we decided to start a company, yeah, you can say maybe it's too late. There are a lot of companies, Palo Alto Networks, Wiz, and others, but what we thought is that maybe now the time is ripe for like once the adoption becomes even bigger and greater, yeah, maybe we can think about kind of solving a bigger problem, right? Like, connecting code to cloud, to on-prem, thinking about remediation, not just detections. Like, there's the next generation of problems, and I think that the time was like, amazing for us for that. And I always think there's time for innovation. And even think of AI, yeah, at the beginning you think about AI for, even AI security for this and for that and for whatever, right? Like small, thinking about it more like a feature product. But then you can consolidate things and think about a problem that you want to solve. If you do that, I think you're going to be successful.
I want to talk a little bit about your own journey as well, because I was at an established firm, you were at an established firm leading many more people. How did you think about the risk? I mean, we can all joke about Israelis being willing to take that risk, but going from, I'm going to manage 2,000 people to I'm going to start from scratch with 3 or 4 is very different.
Yeah, I think personally, I like to work like, with my hands. I like to meet the customers. I want to, I don't feel like, I never felt like an executive, not my style. So it was, okay, let's work together with smart people. Let's work with the people that we love. So to me, like the risk wasn't like the big thing, but I think there is something about, okay, how do you move from like like executive role into like a founding team role, like a few people in like a lot of uncertainty, everything depends on you. I think that's the pressure. But I think that what motivates me is like, okay, to trust the people. Like when you build a team, I think the team means the founding team, the first people that you recruit, the partners that you work with on the VC, the angels that you bring, and then let's work together and listen, right? Because like, the smartest people are, like if you're the least smart people in the room, you're probably doing the right thing, okay? And like learn from people and then trust them and work together as fast as you can. But that's an exciting journey. But you really need to put the ego aside. You don't make decisions on your co-founders. It doesn't matter if they're younger. It doesn't matter if they're less experienced. Like it's a teamwork. You need to think it's a team. If you can release that ego, I think that's the one thing, right?
Maybe you can talk a little bit about just the early decision making on the product. Like, were there forks in the road where you were unsure about what direction to go? Like, one thing I recall very clearly was the security market is one with a lot of noise. right? Like I think as a technologist, you can say like from first principles, this problem's unsolved. But you also had a lot of marketing from big players and platforms out there that said they solved the problem. Like, how did you get confidence that you should pursue it or convince your first handful of enterprise customers?
Yeah, I think this is really the biggest problem when you talk about cybersecurity because of the everything saying the same things. All the websites look the same, and even at the beginning when we were looking about remediation, and I remember talking to Nikesh and Lee, and they said, yeah, but we solved this problem obviously.
This is the CEO and EVP of product at
Yeah.
Palo Alto. Yeah.
You're going to meet, I think, Nikesh tomorrow. And also, and then he became, by the way, an investor in the company. But it was that, yeah, they solved it to an extent, right? They were not focused on solving this problem. So the question is like, how confident are you that once you solve a problem, you're gonna solve it way better than the enterprise? And I can tell you, as you know, the one that builds stuff in Microsoft, that like the big companies move so slowly. So if you have conviction, right, in what you do and you move faster and you do it really the right way and you work with customers, you're probably gonna, excel. So if you're committed to the problem solving, yes, that's the only way. And I do remember, meeting with customers and they're like, we have this with Prisma, we have this with Wiz, we have this. Fine, okay, let's drill down a little bit. You have to be confident and you have to listen because maybe they do it and it's not the right problem that you're solving. You need to solve the right problem, right? Start with that. And I do want to say, I mean, I remember our first conversation and the ideation because when Sarah invested in us, we didn't have any idea, right? And I remember Sarah saying, like, I love this. I mean, I love this. I think stage in a company, right? To think together because you make less mistakes, right? And I think that you joined us to a couple of, to a few meetings with CISOs, and really, I think like. Ask the right question. Ask the right question. Don't get, yes, it's amazing for an answer. Like, ask why it's amazing. Like, question yourself, right? You need to learn that you're building the right thing and then to move, then to start, throwing money on it. But yeah, and another thing, by the way, that whoever works with Sarah is like to think about, the end user. Although we were building for like enterprise CISO, you always say like, who's the end user? If they're developers, they need to love the product. So build it for, I remember those things. And that was great guidance.
It's a bit optimistic, but it also comes from real experience. The first board I was on with a number of Israeli entrepreneurs was a company called Demisto, which actually Palo Alto bought. And oh really? Oh hey bud! Oh my God! Hi. Yes, and he's got this really cool company called Dscope now. I actually think that Slavik and team, they really inspired a lot of my beliefs about what was possible with the end user as well as from other domains. So, Figma design software, it's an end user adopted product even though they have very strong enterprise sales motion today. And Demisto, like security people for good reason are considered to be like quite skeptical of vendors, right? They're a little suspicious. They're not just going to like randomly give you their data. Like they think most things don't work, all of which is like fair, right? But one of the things that Demisto figured out was like end users have problems too, and security people are users too, right? And so the ability to give them the community and the tools and the sort of ability to author their own playbooks and improve their ability to do work, like it actually was an end user adoption motion. And so that made me more convinced that I was like, even in this very suspicious sector, like you can build something that end users love, and you guys definitely did that. Outside of security, like now I get to work with Merav as an angel investor and advisor. She's obviously, a leader at Wiz, but she's helping other entrepreneurs on the side. And one thing that struck me, and we have companies we work together in this vein, she is, very strongly in support of entrepreneurs being ambitious outside of security as well. Like, tell us about that.
Yeah, so I think it's time to talk about, the problem. We need, I mean, how many of you are doing cybersecurity companies? Just raise your hand. Actually, not too many, which is
Cyber's good too, by the way. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so our perspective, I think, my perspective on cyber, yes, like it's a very, very robust market, and like, it's going to grow, and there's going to be a lot of, tons of new problems to solve there. I'm a big believer in that. I mean, I think we just scratched the surface, and there's lots of growth. Like, even if you think about cloud security, only 15% of, the resources are running on cloud, so there's still like, like 85% of growth. Like, right, like tons of opportunities. But in Israel, right, we need to think outside the box. I mean, there are other spaces that are growing so fast. AI, for sure. You can even build bigger companies faster than the way you do in cybersecurity. So open up to that, to those opportunities. And I think that it's really not good to just, be all of us, like in the same space. Because what happens is like there's one company that starts code scanning, right? There are 10 others that are going to run after it. And then we're kind of squeezing the opportunity for success, right? So let's spread it a little bit more and do other things. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think we're very aligned on this in that I think I've worked with 7 or 8 cybersecurity companies over time. I really like the area. Like I sort of was a systems and networking oriented person originally. But it is only one part of the technology opportunity, obviously. And like great engineers and product people and physics and research people and such, they have the ability to go after many opportunities. And so for me, our new fund, we think of it as a generalist investor with a particularly strong understanding and belief in AI, and security is part of that opportunity. But I think we see exactly the issue that Merav has pointed out, where at any point in time, the great thing about security is that there are always new problems, right? They're created by the environment, they're created by technology, they're created by adversaries. But it is a limited number, and then you have great entrepreneurs going after like smaller and smaller slices. So my analogy is sort of like late stage SaaS, right? Originally you had these like big opportunities, it was a very blue ocean, green field, and then by one of the reasons I started the firm as well was by 2020 or so, I was like, okay, well, you can do this tiny slice of go-to-market automation, but you're going to be fighting a lot of other companies to expand, to become a very important company, which is, like one of the missions I love to be on. And I think that it's amazing that the Israeli entrepreneurial ecosystem has grown so much and has such a reputation for expertise in this area. Like, I talk to customers all the time in security, and they're like, we must work with like Israeli entrepreneurs. And I'm like, good, I'm glad you have this confidence. But, if it's 10 companies going after like some small slice of something that is generally already well addressed by other Israeli entrepreneurs, like there's just so much new opportunity. I'll say one more thing about this and ask what you're interested in investing in here. One of the reasons we started the firm is we think that there are a lot of new markets, or markets that look very, very different because of AI. When we look at some of our fastest growing companies, to Merav's point, like the bar has gone up in terms of what is possible from a growth perspective. Our firm is just under 3 years old, and we have a handful of companies that are at or above 100 million in run rate, like in that time span. So it's like that's pretty good in terms of speed. Many of those work in new markets. So Noah mentioned HeyGen. HeyGen does video avatar creation for business use cases. That's not an existing market, right? We're not attacking Adobe. We're just giving people a new capability. Harvey does automation, Copilot, and like workflow automation for lawyers. I was not, super excited about legal vertical SaaS being a really big market before, but I think Harvey could be a very big company because it's expanding the market for this work. And so to Mara's point, we support a cool company together now that's former people who worked with Merav called Enigma, but they're doing like core research work. Right, and so I do think the opportunity is global here. Like the quality of the technical talent certainly supports it, and like I'd encourage people to be really first principles about what they go after.
So it's not too late, you're saying?
Oh no, I think we're very. If it took 20 years to get to some of the really interesting opportunities from the cloud revolution, like we're still in year 3, right?
And I do have a question. I mean, is there an untapped area or domain in AI that you think that is like underestimated and that people are not investing in building there?
So one of the weird dynamics about this market is that the new incumbents, the foundation model research labs, are like quite competent organizations in some way, right? And they're very well resourced. But the labs, like, so we do think about what they're going to go attack. In part, they are focused on things that extend capability in reinforcing ways. And so, for example, OpenAI and Anthropic and DeepMind all have really strong efforts on code generation. We're in a code agent company that is competing successfully with them called Cognition. So I'm not saying don't go after those opportunities anyway. But there's this like funny apocryphal story about one of the labs where, this is like 2 years ago, where all the research scientists could fit in one room. And they're like, rah, rah, we're gonna go like replace a bunch of the knowledge work in the world. And one research scientist raises their hand and they're like, Merav, does anybody know what other people do? What other like knowledge workers do? And dead silence, right? Because like these are engineers and research scientists that are very focused on their day to day. And so I think that is kind of, and then like the funniest part of this is they're not like, oh, we're going to do what Merav suggested and go like listen to the customer and understand all the workflows in the world and then try to go capture them. They're like, okay, moving on, I guess we'll work on code, right? And that's kind of a huge opportunity for everybody else here. And I'm saying like, they're so competent, but only, like any organization can only understand such a part of a really big world. And then going to like the really specific question that Merav asked that's quite tactical and practical here is, well, how do you understand workflows that are non-verifiable, which I'd say is most of what we do, right? If you write code, you can test it, you can execute it, you can do formal proofs, you do lots of things to see that it is doing what you want it to do. If Merav has a pricing negotiation with a customer, like, did she do a good job and how do we evaluate that? That's a really hard question, right? And so I would actually go look at a lot of the non-technical domains that have been completely untouched in terms of what workflows, models could be really useful for.
Thank you. So, Sarah, we'd love to see more of you in Israel next time, not just a couple of days, and like to spend time and to really share your vision with others. And it was a pleasure to work with you in the past and to reconnect in the future. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for working with me. Yeah, cheers.